This Liberty Sports Update is brought to you by Beacon Credit Union.
Hello, Flames Nation. What is going on? Hope you are all doing well. Hope you're all doing safe. I hope your families are doing safe, or doing well also. And we're just glad to have you with us here on another edition of the Liberty Flames Light 'em Up podcast. My name is Nick Pierce, joined by the voice of the Flames, Alan York, also by the voice of men's basketball on LFSN and also from Game On, Matt Warner. So, Matt, Alan, good to have you guys with us. We are in, I don't know what day this is of quarantine, 15, 16, whatever it is. I think we all stopped counting after 12, but how are you guys surviving?
We're doing good. It's like Groundhog Day. Each day is the same. Me and Matt have kids. Nick, you soon will, hopefully down the road. And I know for me, it's taking care of them first in the morning, then get into some work stuff. But the main thing is being safe and heeding all the government warnings and issues to stay home and do all that stuff. I have been out a little bit, just some necessity stuff, as I'm sure we all have. But here in Forest, things are A-okay.
Yeah, we didn't really start the quarantine with our group until yesterday. So it had been business as usual up until then, working in the office and all. And finally, they told us to head out. So this is only day 2 of working from home for me so far. So still kind of getting used to it, but it's been good so far. What I didn't know, though, and I think the most surprising thing about all of this is it takes a global pandemic for Alan to turn into Bob the Builder. I had no idea that AY was like Tim the Toolman Taylor here, just breaking. I've seen all these updates on social media of these things you're constructing now. Had it not been for all of this, I don't think I ever would have known that.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I saw his social media and all this stuff put together, and I'm like, first of all, do you have like some, test subjects that are going to go on there first before you actually let your kids climb on that thing, or what? How's the playground holding up there?
Number one, nobody would confuse me for a carpenter by any stretch of the imagination. This has been a longer than a year project. We have a pretty decent flat backyard. We've got the traditional swing. We have a trampoline, but my wife has been egging me to build a play set, if you will. And you talk about being stressed. I mean, there's 4th and 1. What are we going to call? We're down 2. Timeout on the hard court. What are we going to call out of the timeout? You talk about being stressed trying to build a play set. You're looking at him right here. And so obviously we've got a lot of time on our hands, and I Googled do-it-yourself play sets and singled in on one, and then, I saw another one. I just should have stopped Googling. And so literally right next door, if you just look out your door and look around, you'll have a solution maybe to a problem you have, whether it be go next door, we're out of sugar, let me get a cup of sugar from the neighbor. There's a play set right next door to us that I run by every day, and not thinking what is going to happen or should I use that as reference. And my wife about a week ago goes, hey, come out to the backyard with me. And so I'm making this longer than it needs to be, but there is a old rundown play set. It's in good shape. And I kept looking at it. I'm like, okay, there's 2x4s, there's 2x6s, there's 4x4s. Let me analyze this a little bit deeper. It took about 30 minutes to do a mental sketch. And I was like, Home Depot, Lowe's has all these parts. And so a couple days ago, went and got the parts and just built from the ground up. And we're about 99% complete on it. And the pictures I posted day to day haven't really changed much, even though I've spent hours each day working on it outside of work stuff. So if our administrators are watching this, yes, we have taken care of Liberty stuff first and then family stuff second. So feel pretty accomplished when we look out the backyard, eating dinner each night the last couple of days. I can't believe I did that. But, yes, each day has gone by. I've gotten more confident with my wood building skills, if you will, carpentry skills. So the small jobs, anybody can do it if you just have YouTube and an internet account. Trust me.
Well, I took the garbage out the other day, so I felt pretty accomplished on that.
Congratulations.
That's a man's job. At least in my house it is.
Made some chicken tacos. Felt pretty good about that too. I did actually go buy a weed eater. For those that don't know, I just purchased my first home. So the lawn stuff is up to me now. I went and bought a weed eater, and I'm in the process of getting a lawnmower. And it's funny because my grass was at the point where it needed to be cut. And I'm sitting here and I'm doing something on my laptop, and all of a sudden I hear a lawnmower outside. Well, I didn't think anything of it because we've got houses stacked on houses basically in the neighborhood that I'm in. And I look out and I just happen to notice this guy's cutting my lawn. And I kind of wondered, I was like, well, who's this guy or where's he from? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to let him finish and then I might ask him. So I never got
seen enough. It got high enough for him. He's like, I'm going to take care of it myself.
You're the neighborhood embarrassment. So they had
apparently, but the city hadn't gotten on me about it yet. So I wasn't really too worried. It wasn't coming up to my knees or anything, but yeah, it was to the point where it was time to cut it. And this guy, but there were several other guys out there too, and they were cutting lawns around the neighborhood. So I'm wondering if maybe it was just one of those good Samaritan, everyone's going through a hard time. Let's get out and help, because we do have some older folks that live in this area too. So maybe they just said, hey, we're just going to cut all the yards. My yard's not that big.
Power tools are fun. I got a new weed eater, Ryobi. It's got these attachments to it, and I bought the chainsaw attachment. That's my favorite one. And I don't have a table saw, so one of my neighbors has one, and we've been cutting wood all week for this treehouse playhouse. And I constructed most of it, and there's a piece maybe a centimeter thick that a table saw obviously wouldn't fit. So I got the chainsaw attachment to my weed eater, and I went to town on it yesterday and made a perfect cut on it. And the chainsaw part, that really gets you going. It makes you feel like a man. We have a chainsaw in your hand. So that was one of the final pieces to what we needed. So you mentioned weed eater, and I had to one up you on that, Nick.
Well, Matt, what have you put together?
I did a little
his backdrop there. That's what he's put together.
I built this little backdrop. This has turned into an episode of This Old House here, right before our eyes, I think. So
right.
Yeah, we've been getting after it outside as well. Yeah, don't worry about that.
Good stuff. Well, it's good to hear that everyone's doing well, everyone's healthy, and trying to make the most of this. It's funny. I've got about 10 or 12 things on a to-do list that normally this time of year I wouldn't have time to get to. Normally I'm on the road. I was supposed to be in Nashville this weekend with the baseball team, but it's funny because I'm finding that some of those things that are on the to-do list that I'm always like, I just need the time to do them. Now it's like, man, I just need the motivation to do them. There's a upstairs bedroom that there's just clutter and things that I need to go through. And so finding time, if anything, that's been the one upside to this, is what I was trying to get at, is that we're all kind of finding time to get some of those annoying things done and also spend time with family like you guys have been doing as well. So that's good stuff.
Yeah, I saw a strength coach for trying to think the other day. Georgia Tech's football strength coach put a video out. He was running, and it was like a minute clip, but he was talking about, there's things I did today that we take for granted, and his family was one of them. Our day-to-day jobs are so high-paced, and we go, 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 go. Some are better about taking things in stride and slowing down, but this pandemic has allowed us all to kind of take restock in what should be most important. And I know I've had the opportunity to hang out with my kids more than I have in the last literally 10 years since my kids have been born. And it's been great. It's been claustrophobic sometimes because we've all been on top of each other. And but at the same time, it's been really good to kind of just slow down, reevaluate what's going on outside of work. And I think a lot of people could get biblical with it to say God is maybe doing this on purpose to make people slow down a little bit. Again, I'm not trying to make it part of this video podcast, but that could be one way to think about it, that there might be a higher calling here that's allowing us to slow down and reevaluate what's going on outside of work.
Well, I think that, there's certainly the silver lining to it, and that's been good to see that people have been able to to kind of take advantage of that, I guess, so to speak. But certainly thoughts, prayers, well wishes go out to everyone that's been affected by this. And certainly a big thank you to all the first responders and folks on the front line that are just doing so much that, we can't even see on a day-to-day basis that are combating this virus. And it's just been heartbreaking to see some of that stuff on the news. But we're very fortunate and blessed to be able to do what we do and to still be able to do it. I've been working on a few things, as I know you two gentlemen have as well. One fun thing that I've been doing here is I've been catching up with some of the former players from the Flames baseball program. I got to visit with J.J. McLeod via Zoom last week. Today, actually, before we started taping this, got Trey Todd on the line. Got to visit with him for a little bit. He's in New Jersey right now. Of course, he's in the Dodgers farm system still. And Trey's actually one of the lucky ones, guys. He's got a batting cage he was telling me about that's built onto the side of his house. So his dad works in construction, and he had built this thing back when he was in like 7th grade. So it's been there forever. So he's got, I think he said his sister maybe or someone in his family throwing batting practice to him, and he's kind of made her start going overhand to him. Which has been kind of an adjustment for her. And then being able to lift some weights. I think his girlfriend has a gym in her house, so he's been able to go there and do a little bit of lifting. And so he's been fortunate and been able to stay in shape. But we'll have that full interview coming up here on the pod very shortly. But Alan, Matt, I know you guys have been hard at work as well. Matt, start with you. I mean, what's going on the game on side of things?
Yeah, well, so far we've been fortunate. There won't look like anything different here in the near future. So when we found out we were going to have to head home here on Tuesday, we were able to get far enough along that we were able to put together a new show for this week. So that'll come out later this week. And then the next few weeks, we kind of been planning ahead. So we've got some shows that are kind of themed. Like next week's kind of a look back on the top stories from the 2019 football season. And then we have a couple other shows beyond that already built out as well. And then also each of us that are working at Game On have taken home 3 or 4 stories that we're working on from home, and we're going to continue to kick those out on social media as well, just so people kind of, keep engaged. And, especially at this time, there's no sports going on. Things are slowing down, and so we want to give you a little something to kind of keep your attention and hopefully something you guys will enjoy. So that's fun. I got to catch up with Coach McKay on Tuesday, actually, and so we'll have a quick interview with him, just kind of a season recap. We kept our distance from each other and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. What's kind of a tease from that? What were you able to kind of gain out of that? Where are they at right now as a program?
Just kind of the perspective, and I think it just speaks to, and we talked about the maturity of the team that we talked about on the floor and how poised they were and the way they carried themselves. They're doing the exact same thing in the situation they've been put into now, which is a disappointing and frustrating end for a lot of those guys to their college careers, but the way they're handling it. And also just a little tease, he told us a little bit about a conversation he had with Tony Bennett here in the past few days about what he said about the end of the season and the abrupt end to the season, and kind of some thoughts that Coach Bennett had about the Flames and what all is going on as well. So that was kind of interesting to hear him talk about that too.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I know I've talked to a lot of my family about the end of the basketball season, and they're emotionally upset. Man, what a great season, 30 wins, school record, and man, what are you going to do? And I'm like, what can you do?
Yeah.
You can sulk, you can bemoan it, but it is what it is. And I'm glad to hear, and I would think no other way about this team and Coach McKay, Matt, them being mature about it. And they'll have to move on. But at the same time, I told my family, there's no sense in, bemoaning the fact that, they didn't go to the NCAA tournament, but how are you going to respond to the hand that you're dealt? That's, I think, going to tell the experience and maturity, not just in basketball, but all of the student athletes across the country, because didn't just happen to Liberty, it happened to everybody.
Sure.
And pro sports as well. And how are you going to react to that, I think, is going to go a long way to telling the composure and the integrity of what people have moving forward.
I think something kind of cool about this program, even though it didn't get to realize the carrot on the end of the string, so to speak, with going to the NCAA tournament this year. You look on the bright side of it, at least they got to play their conference championship game. and at least they got to win that and do it at home in front of a packed house. And you think about these seniors and you think about the legacy that they'll leave. These guys got to go out on top, so to speak, and not a lot of players at any level get to experience that, of winning your last game, winning a championship in your last game, and doing it much less in front of your home crowd. I mean, you guys know, you were there, what the atmosphere in the Vine Center was like that day. I mean, I think it's kind of perspective, Alan, kind of like what you were saying. It's all how you look at it, and you can be upset, and rightfully so, and sad about not getting to go to the big dance. But man, look at the blessings. Look at the bright side of it. You got to go out on top.
Well, think of it the other way. Think of it for the Liberty women's basketball team.
Sure,
a game away from playing for a conference championship. They're sitting there ready to go to that game and play for a title, and it gets canceled. And when they're just that close, so. Yeah, you're right. To end on a win, and to end, your last game ever is winning a title and cutting down nets. That probably even now maybe doesn't quite feel great, just knowing what was out there. But I think 10, 20 years ago, they're going to be able to look back on that fondly, knowing that those were their last memories together.
Yeah, and I want to, as we're kind of talking about some hoops here, obviously, I just want to kind of get your thoughts, both of you, on this senior class. I think it's without a doubt the best class that this school's ever seen. Caleb Holmesley, Scotty James, Georgie Pacheco-Ortiz, Mayo Baxter-Bell, all the winning that they were part of. I mean, what's the lasting legacy? What do you guys think that those guys are going to be remembered for?
It's funny, Nick. We were going to be taping yesterday, I think, with Matt, kind of a round table. Kind of got the plug pulled on it for obvious reasons, and we were throwing emails back and forth about what was the defining moment for this team, for this senior class. And as we all think, this isn't exactly what I put in the email, but as you're asking that question, Nick, I'm thinking of all the ups and downs for this senior class. Only one of them, Georgie Pacheco-Ortiz, was there for 4 straight years. The other ones had to redshirt at one time or another. And to think of all the ups and downs that a player could go through. I mean, Caleb Holmesley, 2 blown knees, and he could have quit, could have gone somewhere else. I don't know, but he stuck it out. Maya Baxter-Bell, Scotty James, exact same thing. So just the fortitude of that senior class to push through obstacles. And you go back 4 years ago when they lost their first 12 Division I games, and to see where they are now, it shows me, number one, the vision what Richie had for this program and the individuals he wanted to bring on. And he kept saying from day one, I want to lose with guys first and then win. And it's those losses that help build up just a sense of not going to quit. I'm not going to give up. And this senior class definitely showed that. And, man, what a memory I know we'll all take away from that Sunday a month ago in the Vine Center, 30th win. I mean, a lot of stuff stacked up on that game against Lipscomb, final game of the Vine Center. And it just was a memorable moment that, once all the dust settles in this COVID-19, we'll think back to how fun of a run it was with that senior class.
Yeah, I just think consistency is what comes to mind with that group, and it didn't always result in wins. They had some struggles. We remember some ups and downs during the season, some losing skids, some hard times maybe, but the consistency they showed day in and day out in trusting Coach McKay, trusting the process that he was delivering to them, and then just the way that they worked. That you knew that was good. They were going to come every day and work hard. And you see guys this year, I see guys wearing the shirts, of everyday dude, right? You'd see them wearing those. That's what they were. They showed up every day, went to work. And by the time that this year came around and they were seniors, you didn't know if you were talking to Coach McKay or you were talking to Maya Baxter-Bell or you were talking to Caleb Holmesley. They were just so there's so much synergy between them and the coaching staff, and they knew exactly what was expected, exactly what they needed to do, and they brought it every single day. And obviously the results, are what they are. They won 30 games and a conference title. I think that's what I'll remember about those guys, in addition to the fact that they're just great dudes. People expect us to say that. I wouldn't say that if it wasn't legit. These guys, you see them any place, you run into them on campus, you see them out around town. They are legitimately great kids. A lot of that due to their upbringing, due to Coach McKay and his ability to find kids like that, bring them in, and allow them to continue to grow under him. But a lot of credit due to those guys as well, because they've taken advantage of the opportunity they've had here at Liberty, not just on the basketball court, but to grow personally as well.
Yeah, Alan, I think that going back to what you said, it was Tony Bennett that told Richie McKay that it's like get players that you can lose with first,
Right.
and then worry about the wins and losses or something to that effect. But Matt, to your point about the consistency, I think yes, it's the consistency, but it's also in the face of adversity. And back to what Alan was saying about Caleb Holmesley, 2 blown knees, 1 in college, his sophomore year. Has to sit out, and just things that weren't fair, but that's what life dealt them, and they were still able to fight through. Georgie Pacheco Ortiz, playing away from his family, and the earthquakes and hurricanes and everything ravaging Puerto Rico. I think that the fact that all of those kids, and I say kids, I mean they're men, but they're young men. And to be able to do that in the face of some adversity, I mean, there's 35, 40-year-old men that struggle to fight through things like that or would struggle. So I think that that's really what kind of sticks with me about those young men and the fact that they all bought in at once, and to see them all play so hard for one cause. And it was just about, one goal. It wasn't about, let me go out and get my 25 points. You just don't see that a whole lot anymore at this level of college basketball.
And think of two guys, the team coming back is going to be 180 different than what it was here in 1920. And those guys that do come back, the Cuffeys, McGee's, Kyle Rhodes, learning from this senior class of how to deal with expectations or the lack thereof maybe coming up this year. We just don't know where it's going to be. How vital it's going to be for those guys coming back, because who are you going to lean on? You're going to need some leadership coming back, and there aren't going to be but maybe Cuffey, the only senior on that class or that team coming back, and so it's going to be a younger team. And that experience from this year and even the last couple of years of the guys that are juniors and seniors, it's going to be important to see how they're going to carry themselves here in 2021. I think we'll get there at some point. Obviously, a lot of unknowns in the near future with what's going on around the world, but that is going to be important for that team coming back here whenever they do get back here in full strength.
I thought it was good to see Elijah Cuffey have the game that he did in the ASUN title game and kind of go out on that kind of a note and have that. I don't know. There's just something about when you're able to finish strong like that, like Caleb Holmesley did in the NCAA tournament last year, where he had that big performance before the Virginia Tech game. But it kind of launches you, I feel like, into the next season. And Elijah Cuffey, like Alan said, there's going to be a lot expected of him, as there should be. He'll be a senior next year. Kyle Rowe, there'll be a lot asked of him next year, and some of these guys that kind of played, I guess, monitored minutes in some spells this year. But there's some talented players coming in next year as well. And Isaiah Warfield, a 3-star guard out of Pennsylvania, has certainly been the talk of the class, I guess, so to speak. But there's plenty others as well. Drake Dobbs, Jonathan Jackson, the list goes on. But you guys are pretty connected to that stuff and know or have an idea of what these guys could bring to the table. Just whoever wants to start. I mean, what's your impressions of this class that's coming in, the ones that we can't officially talk about up to this point that have signed their NLI?
Yeah, well, I think you're seeing the steady growth in, you win some games, you make some noise nationally, you see the talent level that you're recruiting from continue to rise, and you mentioned some of those guys. I think the most important guy, though, in this class is Micaiah Abi, the kid out of Texas, because you think about what Liberty loses, and I was looking at today, it's 40-something points and about 20 rebounds a game that isn't coming back. And you think about what Liberty does not have size-wise going into next year. A lot's going to be asked of Shiloh Robinson, who I think is going to be an awesome player. But you don't have a lot of size. Him, Blake Preston, you don't have a lot of
He's got
big.
some bounce that can kind of make up for that, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, no doubt. And But, again, if you're asking him to play the 5, like there could be some nights where that's a problem. But I think Micaiah Abi, the kid out of Texas, he could play a little bit of that Mile Baxter Bell role. He's 6'7", he's athletic, but you watch him, he can handle the ball. He can be a bigger guy you can pull out and kind of help get you into your offense. and he can shoot it well from deep too. So he adds another dimension there. But just because of what's back on this roster and what they don't have size-wise, I think he may be the most important newcomer coming in. And then one other thing, don't forget about Martin Made, because, you know, he didn't play this whole year. He had the injury. He had to sit out. Like, you go back and watch some of his high school tape, that guy is a bucket and a half. So you go watch what he did. Like, he is exciting, and I can't wait to see him healthy and playing, because you talk about the size, there's going to be a lot of guards, a lot of wing players on his team trying to figure out, you know, offensively who kind of rises to the surface. It can't just be Darius McGee taking 30 shots a night, as fun as that might be. But I think Martin Made's going to be a key factor as well. And he has a head start getting into this system, having been around it all year.
Yeah, and Martin, although not playing this year, did get back to practice midway through the season. And the chances I got to watch him were basically on the road. I didn't see him practice at home much when we had home games, but on the road, being at workouts, you know, Coach McKay did a great job for the guys that didn't get full-time minutes. He always made it a point during workouts, during practices on the road, to get those guys 30 minutes going up and down with some of the managers and some of the compete team. And Martin Made is a slick player. He's intense, and he can get to the hole and he can shoot it. So I would echo Matt's thoughts on Martin and what he might bring to the table. Although again, we'd have no sample size for him, so it's going to take some time to get adjusted to real game speed once they start playing again.
But that's why I would say too, for fans, like, cherish the last couple of years, right? It's kind of like that, the old Billy Madison, cherish this, you know what I mean? Like, cherish these last couple of years, how far Liberty came, how good they were these past really 3 years. Enjoy that, and then know that this year there are going to be more ups and downs than there have been the past 2 years. Accept that, but it's also, there's a different kind of excitement when you're going in with some unknown, right? You'd love to have all the seniors back and know what you have. There's kind of a different kind of excitement when you just have all these young guns. You're trying to figure out who's going to be the next stud, who's going to rise to the surface. And I think that's what you have with this team. So there'll be some ups and downs, especially in non-conference play, I'm sure. But I would expect when the calendar turns to A-Sun play, Coach McKay is going to have these guys dialed in, and they're still going to be one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the A-Sun, I would think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it's kind of like putting the puzzle pieces together, right? You know, when you dump all the pieces out on the table, you know, the last couple of years we've kind of been about 3/4 of the way through the puzzle or had it all figured out, but now kind of restart a little bit. So that part is fun. How about the fact that it's been 5 years now? It was 5 years on, what was it, Wednesday? 5 years Wednesday since Coach McKay was rehired at
Yesterday.
Liberty. Yeah, to be the head coach. And you look at what that has been, what those 5 years have been like, going from one of the worst Division I teams in America to winning a first-round game within a span of 4 years, and then getting to 30 wins this season, 59 wins over the last 2 seasons. I loved what Coach McKay – I don't know if you guys watched this, but they had a clip of his introductory press conference on libertyflames.com yesterday. He said, "I believe anything can happen here, and I hope we'll see this program reach a level that not even you thought was possible," speaking to everyone that was in the room that day. Fair to say that it's gotten there?
Absolutely. And there's been a couple of watershed moments with this program. You know, Coach McKay does a phenomenal job of just, I think, connecting not only his team, but just the entire basketball world. When you talk about Richie McKay, people, their faces light up. I know mine does when I'm around him. And he just keeps it real with his team when he needs to. He knows basketball, and he's not going to skirt outside of what he thinks is the way to build his program. I mean, there's pressures, there's comments, you know, maybe they should do this, maybe they should do that. He stuck to his plan, did not deviate from it. And he doesn't care if you're Lavelle Cabell and you're the best defender on the team, or Caleb Holmesley, you're the best player on the team. He's going to make it a team. There's a reason why Ryan Kimwright, when he was here, always talked about it's a we over me type of philosophy, and you have to buy in to be on this team. That's kind of what we talked about 20 minutes ago about, you didn't know, Matt, you made the comment, if Coach McKay's talking in front of a microphone or the rest of the players, because they all buy into that same theme of the team over my stats. And that's one thing about Coach McKay. He's not going to deviate from what he thinks is the right thing to do. And you saw just baby steps built up the last 5 years to what we're seeing now. It's been remarkable. It's been, I don't want to say unbelievable because it has happened for us, but it's just been incredible to see the leadership that he brings within his family, not only from the players but the managers and Chelsea Mangino, who runs the ship, along Coach McKay. It's been really cool to see.
Yeah, I would say, thinking back to that press conference, and I think we were probably all there for it.
Yep.
I would say probably 95% of the people in that room wouldn't have believed that it would get here. Because I even think back to that day, and I wasn't
not
around
that quickly. Certainly not as quickly as
No.
it did, for sure.
But like, I remember, I wasn't here when Coach was here the first time, but I remember hearing from people that have been around the program for a long time and stuff, kind of just like I guess, and nationally people are saying, oh, it's just that wasn't a creative hire. You're just hiring a guy back again. Like there was kind of some negativity in just that people thought they knew. They thought they knew, or there was some hurt feelings from how it ended the first time. And so they were that was a carryover. But I think when you look, just basically at what he's gone through his entire career, the people he's been around, especially at Virginia, like it could not have been a more perfect fit. How he grew as a coach during those 6 years at UVA made him a different person when he came back, certainly on the court and what he does there. And so like it's been, it's exceeded, I think, almost anyone's expectations, certainly quicker than I think any of us would have imagined at the time. And now you just say, we got to make sure Richie McKay's on that Liberty sideline until he decides to hang it up, because he's that important, I think, for Liberty athletics.
Well, you look back to those 2 years that he was here prior to going to Virginia, and you really felt like that team, that program was close to taking the next step. Seth Curry as a freshman led all freshmen in the country in scoring that year. Jesse Sanders as a freshman was such a big piece. Kyle Oman on that team. They were very close. I think they won 22, 23 games that year and then lost in the semifinals of the conference tournament with that much youth on the floor. So if that had stayed together, you sometimes think about what that could have been. Now, certainly the way things have played out in the long term, you're thankful for the way that it did. And I think that you're right. Once Coach went to UVA, and he's been the first to say this, he got his PhD in defense and kind of completed maybe that missing void in what he needed to be a better head coach. And so
also too, fellas, what one thing the fans can hold on to, the last 2 years, beaten by Virginia Tech in the round of 32, it wasn't a week before extension was announced.
Yeah.
It wasn't a week after the Lipscomb game or once the season, was canceled by the NCAA, extension was announced.
Yeah.
He's here to stay. There is no doubt in my mind, last 2 years when he signed those extensions, that his commitment level, and there's coaches out there that talk about, well, I want to be here for my career, and then they bolt a year later. He is a man of his word, and if one thing the fans can rest on, is he going to stay? What's he going to do? He's committed to this program for the long time down the road, in my opinion.
And I think, what was the term that I know I'd heard thrown around early when I got here, and you hear it more now, is the Gonzaga of the East. I've heard that phrase thrown around. And at first it was kind of like, that seems like – but now you start to kind of break it down. Not only are you seeing the success on the court, you're seeing the new arena, you're seeing all the other facilities that go along with it. And now you kind of start looking around and saying, well, I mean, why not? Could they not be at least, the Wichita State of the East? Could they not be, could they not be a program like that where year in and year out they're expected to be in the tournament, and hopefully they start bringing and picking up this conference and kind of carrying them along with them. You know what I mean? Like the rest of the level of the A-Sun will kind of start to rise as well, along with Liberty. That's the hope, at least, as we go.
Well, I think that's key, Matt, is that the rest of the conference, and certainly you're not going to get everyone in the conference at an elite level, but if you can get a Lipscomb, to kind of get back up there to what they were at. Now, they had a good team this year, obviously. They were playing for the title, but to get back to what they were maybe 2 years ago, or, a couple of others, a North Florida or whoever, in there to kind of to boost themselves and boost the reputation of the league, which in turn will help Liberty, and hopefully Liberty can help the league and go kind of hand in hand in that. But yeah, what were the mid-major rankings this year? We talk about Gonzaga. Gonzaga was number 1, Liberty was number 2 at one point, or for the most of the season. Yeah. So I mean, you could argue that they're on their way, to getting to that point. So it's been a lot of fun, certainly watching that program develop and become what it is. And it's a lot of fun to think about what it could be here in the hopefully not so distant future. Yeah. Another big piece of news this week, just a couple more things, and then we'll sign off for now. But wouldn't mind making this a weekly thing if you guys don't mind.
I mean, I took the time to pin these to the wall. We might as well.
You got to get some use out of them.
When he's not manufacturing his own cereal behind him.
Yeah, that's right.
NCAA this week announced the decision to grant the extra year for spring sports student athletes. I thought that was great. I think personally, I think the only reason it took as long as it did is just there's so much legislation and just so much stuff that has to be worked through, red tape, so to speak. There's the financial aid side of it, which I'm not even going to attempt to touch here right now. There's so much confusion to that. Things that are still being sorted out, actually, phone calls every day. But basically what it boils down to for Flames fans, specifically talking about the baseball program that applies to all spring sports, is that the seniors this year that would have exhausted their eligibility now have the option to come back for next season. And you think about the Flames, they had 4 seniors on their baseball team. That certainly could be a big shot in the arm for them going forward next year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, like a lot of guys, especially in baseball, if you don't get drafted after your junior year, sometimes that's kind of a sign, you know what I mean? So you don't know what's to come. I've played with a lot of guys and been around a lot of guys. When you finally get to that senior year, it's like, you know what, I'm ready to move on and have a career and do those things. So all around college athletics, we'll kind of find, where are guys at? Where are they mentally? What do they want to do? And so that'll be interesting to see kind of what road some of those guys take. It certainly could provide potentially a boost, though, for a lot of programs. And I think the NCAA had to do that for spring sports. There's no choice. Does it affect maybe freshmen coming in? Could it potentially negatively affect them? Possibly, but you still have to, I think, give those seniors a fair shake in the end and give them the opportunity if they want to come back. And I like to, because then they also say, you got to come back with the school you were with. You can't count somebody else, which was also smart in that sense to say, we're going to do this the right way, and you're going to come back with the program you were with when this all went down.
Yeah, and the scholarship can't exceed what you were already being given. You have to come back to the school you were with. And as far as the roster limits, those have obviously been expanded to whatever your senior class was. So the Flames, for instance, their roster limit was 35 like everyone's. They can now go to 39 if all 4 of those guys were to come back. But what will be interesting, I think I was reading yesterday, maybe TCU or somebody had about 8 seniors that could potentially come back. That's, I think, where it starts to get interesting when you've got those big senior classes out there. So still a lot of or a few unanswered questions as far as that goes. But, it could be a lot of fun to watch this Flames team, get another year together and, try to come back and maybe get off to a little bit better start than even they did this year. So,
yeah, I can't add much to that. I'll echo what y'all were going to say. I was going to mention right after you did say that, Nick, about the start for Liberty baseball. They were starting to kind of figure it out a third way through the season. And again, it's where you finish, not where you start. But I know a good start helps you build momentum through the season. And again, it's something that Scott Jackson's going to look at once he gets his roster set for 2021.
Well, I think that we've about covered it here for today. We're going to go ahead and sign off here on this edition of the podcast. Appreciate you guys joining us here, but we'll be back with you. Also coming up on LibertyFlames.com, we've got a lot of exciting stuff. Game on. Matt, you said you caught up with Coach McKay this week. Matt, I'll kind of give you the floor here for a moment. What do you guys have coming up here on the show?
Well, we've got some fun stuff. We've done a couple of film room pieces, actually, that'll be out in the next few weeks. Caught up with Maurice Harris, Liberty football wide receivers coach. Got in the film room, and he broke down Antonio Gandy-Golden and kind of how they were able to help him improve his senior year. Compared him to some of the guys that he was around at Ole Miss when he was there, some names that you're hearing on Sundays now, and how AGG kind of compares to those guys. So we'll be pushing that out a little bit closer to the NFL draft. And then while we had Coach McKay, we did a little film session with him breaking down the ASUN championship game against Lipscomb. We did that a year ago, and it was a lot of fun. So we went back and watched some of the highlights again and got his reaction to what took place that day. It was a lot lower stress this year than it was the previous year. But so I had a great time with him doing that. So, some good stuff on the horizon for sure.
And I'm sure Coach McKay, we all know his personality, but even when games are stressful, I was watching back one of the air checks of one of the tournament games. It might have been the quarterfinal or maybe a couple of weeks removed from that, and Emily was interviewing him at halftime, and it was a stressful first half, and he had the personality to answer with something about – it was a jab at Matt jokingly about being on the microphone or something about the play-by-play, but I'm like, Coach McKay's the best. Not the ribbing of Matt, but just to come out with that in a tenseful situation, it cut the intensity in half, and it was like, okay, we're going to run the table in the second half. I just knew it was really cool.
Well, it was like last year in the NCAA tournament. Flames are down 10 with like 7 minutes to go. He gets in the huddle and tells them all, "Hey, if you guys come back, I'll take you an In-N-Out burger."
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing. I mean, sometimes you just need that. But Alan, social media-wise, this weekend we've got the Final Four coming up for the Liberty Top Play Bracket Challenge.
Liberty Top Play, we are down to 4. There is a women's lacrosse play. There's 2 basketball plays, and speaking of AGG, Antonio Gandy Golding catch at Rutgers that has made the Final Four. You and I, Nick, at some point are going to record sort of a preview to these plays coming up. We're trying to get the coaches to comment on these plays, maybe 20 or 30-minute clip, or 20, 30-second clip of each play, the coach talking about them to kind of splice into kind of the preview piece for Saturday. So working through that. Yesterday I was able to catch up with Dominic Szynski, football strength coach, for about 30 minutes. So that we're going to drop that interview at some point tomorrow on all of our social media channels. I think it currently right now is on our Liberty Flames podcast channel on iTunes. We'll load that to SoundCloud as well. And also coming up, we're going to be loading some other archived radio broadcasts. We've already got a number of them out there. The next one we're going to launch was the Flames' improbable run to the 2013 Big South Championship, winning 4 games in 5 days to do so. And we're going to do a video chat like this with Joel Vanderpool and Tomas Gielo and reminisce about that run 7 years ago and some untold stories leading up to that championship game, one of which I'll share now. It was a 12 noon tip-off. We're already on the radio at 11:30. The team is not there yet. The team has not showed up. They literally rolled off the bus. I think they warmed up maybe for 5 minutes, went into lineups, and then played and won that game. And talking to Matt Olinger, who's now working for Mike Young at Virginia Tech, he was on the staff at Liberty at the time. He said it was all by design. And I already talked to Joel yesterday about then head coach Dale Layer and how Dale kind of changed his coaching from
approach.
It was just an interesting run through those 5 days that Joel and Tomas are going to be able to shed some really cool stories on that championship in 2013.
Wow, really looking forward to that. That's great stuff, and looking forward to getting back to normal here eventually, but for now, making the most of it. And also, guys, we got to do some play-by-play at home clips. I expect to see you guys commenting on your kids out in the yard playing ball.
We'll get on that.
All right, guys. Appreciate the time. For Alan York, for Matt Warner, my name is Nick Pierce. We'll talk to you next time here on the Liberty Flames podcast from Van Wagner on the Liberty Flames Sports Network.